Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley.
You have the Jewish community beginning to call her not Candace Owens, but Candace Owens.
People can see and hear evil, and what you are doing right now is an act of evil. We all recognize that Rabbi Shmuley is unhinged.
Candace Owens never met Michael Jackson. I was his rabbi for 2 years. She said that I killed him, that she would say the Jews killed Michael Jackson. You never said that I threatened to murder you?
No, I never said that you threatened to murder me. Don't cut me off. I did not cut you off.
Now she's fact-checking it? You're kidding me, right?
Well, for you, so give me 1 second.
I don't have a computer on me.
The Israeli Defense Force had dropped more bombs on Gaza than were dropped on Dresden. That is true. Do you accept that, Rabbi Shmuley?
You know, Pierce, I find this an astonishing debate.
You asked?
Wait, first of all, I don't... Wait, what do you mean it's true? Because she said it's true?
The war in Gaza is barreling towards a grim anniversary. This deadly year, sparked by a terrorist atrocity and met with an often merciless response, has changed the way that many people think about an historic dispute. Never in our lifetimes has there been such active debate about Israel's role in the modern world and whether the United States and its allies should back it. Protests and counter-protests have brought anti-Semitism to the fore, along with the charge that it sometimes insulates Israel from criticism. My next two guests had vivid opinions on these big issues and have had a very public feud. We're bringing them together for what we intend, I hope, to be a proper debate. The topics will be the Israel-Hamas war, anti-Semitism in public life, American involvement in Israel, and Israeli involvement in the United States. And we'll even talk about Michael Jackson, who is relevant to this debate. Both guests will get roughly equal speaking time and a chance to question each other. Speaking of the other guests is not encouraged. Ad hominem attacks are strongly discouraged. But knowing these two as I do, I can make no promises. Returning to Uncensored, host of the Candace podcast, Candace Owens, and the author of The Israel Warrior and the Michael Jackson tapes, Rabbi Shmuley. So welcome to both of you. First of all, it's great you're doing this. You've had a public feud for a couple of years now. You've torn into each other in various forums. This is your chance to take each other on. And at the centre of this, as I said in the intro there, is a very serious global story, which is the Israel-Hamas war and all the complexities that come away from that. I want to give you both the chance to make an opening statement. So, Rabbi Shmuley, you won the toss. We didn't really actually toss, but we both agreed you can do this. You go first. Your opening remarks.
Thank you, Piers, for having me, and Candace, thank you for debating me. I have spent my life bringing together the Black and Jewish communities, emphasizing that we share not only a history of shared persecution, but of spiritual promise. Today, we debate an American tragedy, a woman of unique eloquence who has abused that eloquence to become simultaneously the foremost anti-Black rhetorician in all of the United States and the foremost anti-Semite in America. The statements that Candace has made against her own community, that they cry wolf and constantly say that they're victims of racism. Her attacks on George Floyd, a man who was suffocated to death for a $20 counterfeit note saying that he was a horrible human being. A woman who went up in front of CPAC and said, I was never a slave in America, as if that's the only form of discrimination, is what has led her community to call her not Candace, but Clandis. The first ever female Black woman who appears in her rhetoric against Blacks, calling LeBron James dumb and stupid, an icon to the Black community, as Clandis. Simultaneously, you have the Jewish community beginning to call her not Candace Owens, but Candace Owens, because her Goebbels-style rhetoric against Jews, that Jews are nearly all pedophiles. The State of Israel will set up a Theodor Herzl, a pedophile, as a haven for pedophiles. That Judaism is a demonic, satanic cult that only protects pedophiles. And by the way, her absolute obsession with Jewish sexuality and Jewish genitalia, the first lady of France, Brigitte Macron's genitalia, is disturbing. It's one of the reasons I think she hates Sigmund Freud so much, because she's a Freudian field dream in terms of his arguments that the greater the sexual suppression and repression, the greater we see violence. But when you say that the Jews killed JFK because he was about to ostracize Israel, when you invent all of these fabrications out of whole cloth, what is the result? The result is the demonization of Jews that leads to violence. Piers, just 1 week ago, 2 days after Candace falsely accused me, as she has for 2 years, of being a murderer, of threatening to kill her, something for which she will face legal action because you cannot malign a rabbi and his daughter as murderers. 2 days later, I was swatted in my house where 5 police cars had to break into my house because Mayor Michael Wilds of Englewood, New Jersey, received an email arguably from one of Candace's followers after she said essentially what Henry II says, "Who will rid me of this troublesome priest?" which leads directly to the murder of Thomas Becket, who today is a Catholic saint, of course. We were swatted, and the FBI is now investigating Candace's rhetoric. They're investigating
Rabbi Shmuley, I'm interrupting because you've now been speaking for 3 minutes.
One final point.
So Candace will get exactly the same amount of time. It's up to you, but it's an opening statement, right? And what I would say...
May I just say finally, if I may?
Well, if it's quick,
The biggest issue I have with Candace, to be honest, is that she claims to be a Christian. Candace, didn't Jesus say you're supposed to love your enemies? Is the love you show me that you call me filth twice on the last show that you did with Piers a piece of filth? You're supposed to love your enemies. Is that turning the other cheek? And Piers, you're an English gentleman. I've known you for many years. You allowed her to say that without even a piece of filth. When Jesus said that you're supposed to turn the other cheek, where have you ever turned the other cheek? When Jesus said that the meek shall inherit the earth, the arrogance, the nonstop attack against Jews, the demonization. If you are a Christian, then I am the second coming of Christ.
Okay, that's 4 minutes you've spoken to. Out of fairness, Candace, if you want to use 4 minutes to respond, you can. All I would note, Rabbi Shmuley, is you've spent 4 minutes personally attacking Candace Owens. I set this up as a debate about what is happening with the Israel-Hamas war, anti-Semitism, and so on and so on. You've turned it all completely, immediately, into an ad hominem onslaught against Candace.
How could you possibly say that? You are speaking to a woman who says the Jews are a ring of demonic pedophiles, and you're saying that I have no right to defend my people? You know, Piers, you have to stop this once and for all. There was nothing ad hominem at all.
All right.
When Candace says that the black community
you've had your say.
is a bunch of crybabies, everything I said was policy. I could not disagree more.
Candace will now get the same amount of time, if you want it, Candace, to respond.
Thank you, Piers. And I don't think I really do need to respond to the ad hominem attacks. I think actually one of the things that plausibly unites people across all religions, Muslims, Jews, Christians, is that we all recognize that Rabbi Shmuley is unhinged. He's just mentally, in my view, unwell. And I don't say that as an attack. I say that as just a reality, because I've never seen someone just make things up out of thin air that were never said. And trying to screen that as a defense of black people. The black people will never accept Rabbi Shmuley after Michael Jackson put him on a list of people who he felt were ruining his life. So you can stop your pleas with Black America. They won't work. Now, going back to the context of what you've asked us to speak about today, you know, I think one of the things that the world is recognizing and what we've always recognized is that there are radical fringe sects that break out within every single religion, amongst every race. There's white supremacy, there's black supremacy, there's radical Islam, there are all of these Christ cults around the world. And I think right now it's important for people to understand that radical Judaism is also a thing, and you're watching an example of it right now on your screen. The person sitting across from me, or sitting next to me, I guess, posted on his Facebook page in 2016 a tribute to someone who he said was his mentor. That was Rabbi Menachem Schneerson. He said he was his mentor and his friend. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Rabbi Schneerson, there were some Jews who believed that he was and is the Messiah. So rejecting Christ, but believing that that rabbi was his Messiah. Now, you may remember in the news recently, there was this radicalized faction of the Lubavitch Orthodox community in Brooklyn that were digging tunnels in Brooklyn and hurling benches at police officers. Well, and by the way, this is per the Times of Israel, that faction of individuals are followers of Rabbi Schneerson. So again, you have Rabbi Shmuley who believes that that's his mentor. They believed that he was the Messiah. What is it that becomes important to understand? What did Rabbi Schneerson preach? Well, he preached Jewish supremacism, the hatred of all non-Jews. And you don't have to take my word for it, because if I said it, they would say that's anti-Semitism. You should instead take the word of the two Jewish professors who translated his work. Those authors' names were Israel Shahak and Norton Mezvinsky, and their book was entitled Jewish Fundamentalism in Israel. From that book, we learned that Shmuley's mentor, Schneerson, describes the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. And he says, quote, "Thus, we do not have a case of profound change in which a person is merely on a superior level. The body of a Jewish person is of totally different quality from the body of all nations of the world." And he talks about the substance of the Jewish body versus the substance of non-Jews, saying that the inner quality, quote, is so different and so great that the body should be considered completely different species. So that is a belief. And you can go through his speeches and you will see that he continually talks about how non-Jews should be treated, and that, again, we are a different species. This is what Rabbi Shmuley believes in. We have to come to terms with the fact that there are Jewish radicals, and it's incumbent upon the Jewish community to call them out. I'm glad that you brought up my rhetoric about Black Lives Matter, the organization, and which was basically allowing Black criminals to take to the street to burn down, to loot, and to riot in the name of racism, because it shows that I'm on equal footing here, that across the board, I do not support supremacism, whether it's coming from my community or whether or not it is coming from yours. And I think the entire world is now paying attention and wondering what is going on in Israel. What is this government? Is this a radical fringe government? And many people are concluding that the answer to that question is yes.
Okay, those are the two opening statements. Rabbi Shmuley, let me ask you this. Where are we now with this war? Because it seems that the people inside Israel are now beginning to come after Prime Minister Netanyahu, angry that his mission to save the hostages is simply not working. We saw 6 more executed at the weekend. Obviously, that's on Hamas. But the relatives of other hostages are saying, for God's sake, bring back the hostages before it's too late. And there's no sign of any deal being done to do that. And there's a lot of pressure on Netanyahu. Is his mission statement failing?
Yes, I will answer that in just a moment. But Piers, your guest just called me mentally unhinged. She called me filth twice on your show. You did not just say to her, Candace, can you stop the ad hominem attacks? Did I ever say anything? I stuck to policy. Can you at least just be fair and say that's unnecessary, Candace, or is this two against one?
Well, no. You spent 4 minutes lacerating her.
Calling me mentally unhinged, is that
you're sitting there to defend that charge?
Is that ad hominem?
You spent 4 minutes attacking her personally. She's perfectly entitled
Piers,
to return the favor.
with all due respect, when one of your guests calls someone else filth, I think that you, as an English gentleman, should step in. But let me answer your question. No less, the only thing of Christ that Candace Owens has actually fulfilled comes from Matthew chapter 10, verse 35, where Jesus says, I've come to separate and create conflict between a woman and her mother-in-law and father-in-law. My answer to your question about Gaza is that Lord Michael Farmer, a courageous British peer who happens to be Candace Owens' father-in-law, issued one of the most robust and beautiful defenses of Israel that any of us have read since October 7th. He said that, of course, there's a lot of terrible Palestinian casualties. God loves every Palestinian child as much as he loves a Jewish child. He said, but Israel has no choice but to fight this war because Hamas hides in residential areas and under nurseries. He said that Israel, the savagery of October 7th, demands a response. He said that Israel is doing exactly the right thing. And he said that he's doing all this in response to a, quote, high-profile member of his family. The contempt to not even mention his daughter-in-law, Candace Owens, because he didn't want to say her name. And he didn't even say, I love my daughter-in-law, but because the British remember Hitler, they remember the Battle of Britain, they remember the V-1 and V-2 rockets. Candace Owens has actually now said that the Nazis were the good guys and it was the Allies, the British, people like yourself, Piers, who engaged in the ethnic cleansing of 12 million people based on some documentary she watched called The Savage Peace on the BBC, which wasn't even about the Allies. She always distorts. It was about the Czechoslovakia, a country that no longer even exists. And as far as what she said about Michael Jackson, putting me on enemies list, that is a total fabrication. It was invented by someone named Dieter Wietzner, who sued Michael Jackson for $64 million, tried to shake him down, and Michael had to pay him $4 million. I worked to save Michael's life. Candace Owens never met Michael Jackson. I was his rabbi for 2 years. I love him. I missed him. I tried to get him off of drugs. She said that I killed him. And talk about the contempt for people struggling with addiction, that she would say the Jews killed Michael Jackson. And with all due respect, Piers, you have not said that one of those things, that I'm a murderer, a man who doesn't have a speeding ticket, who doesn't have a parking ticket, is a murderer, and the police have to come and the FBI to protect me. Are you going to say...
Here's what I'm going to say to you, Rabbi Shmuley. Once again, you've just singularly failed to answer my question. So if you're just going to continue, every time I ask you a question about the war, which is the point of a debate, to just launch into Candace or her family or whatever, that's your decision. But in the interest of fairness, every time you speak for 3-4 minutes, well, hang on. I'm now going to let Candace respond, if you want to, Candace. Look, it is obviously a matter of public record that your father-in-law, Lord Farmer, did post on X what he posted. He concluded by saying, I point out I'm the Christian Deputy Chair of the Council for Christians and Jews. This was founded in 1942 as a bulwark against anti-Semitism. I mean, do you want to say anything about what your father-in-law posted or anything else that Rabbi Shmuley just said?
Yeah, I'm grateful that he brought that up, and because it's very disturbing to me to see him try to pretend that my father-in-law distanced from me or said something in favor of anything that Rabbi Shmuley is saying. He would never do that. It is very important to understand that, you know, he does support Israel, and he has reaffirmed his support for Israel. And you can imagine that within any family, you have disagreements about things, but fundamentally, it's all love, you know, and it's good for us to have these conversations. Prior to him posting the statement, I had just gotten back from vacation with him. Literally 48 hours earlier, there was something incredibly demonic about a person trying to use the Bible at the beginning of his statement, as he did, trying to quote scripture and immediately following it up by trying to pull a family apart. I mean, that is utterly unholy. And I think the question of holiness and what is holy is relevant to this discussion. I think this is a conversation that a lot of people are having as well. Look, prior to October 7th, I don't think many people were engaged with what is happening in Israel. You know, we kind of all said the same thing. Israel is our friend and ally. I count myself among those people. Post October 7th, the world, and especially I would say Zionists in media, were demanding that we all pay attention. And when we began to pay attention, we didn't like what we saw. You cannot tell me to ever feel comfortable with 18,000 children being ruthlessly murdered. You can't get me to feel comfortable as a Christian with the amount of more explosives dropped, tons of explosives dropped on Gaza than were dropped in Hiroshima. This doesn't make sense to me. Gaza is 30 miles long, 7 miles wide. It's incredibly dense population. And this is, by the way, according to Haaretz, that 40,000 Palestinians have been murdered. I believe they're getting those numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry. And here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. The fact that you would try to say, I am Jewish, and this is what I believe, and do and say the things that you are doing. People can see and hear evil, and what you are doing right now is an act of evil. The lies that you are telling, not just on me, but also on my family members, are a good example for the world to see what we are referring to when we call something radical Zionism.
Okay, Rabbi Shmuley.
Okay, and okay, thank you. And of course, Piers, there was nothing ad hominem about my being demonic. This is a 2 against 1 debate. I expected that. And
it's not a 2 against 1 debate.
And I will, excuse me, no, it's a 2 against 1 debate.
You've made no attempt to answer my question.
No, Piers, let me speak.
Candace has been trying to answer my question.
Candace just said,
you're not.
Candace just said Candace, filth, demonic. There's nothing ad hominem about that. You are correct. You're right, Piers. Candace Owens just said that Israel dropped more bombs on Gaza than on Hiroshima. Hiroshima was an atomic bomb, Candace. You know, why don't you just read Wikipedia? Israel has nuclear weapons. They've never used them, so I have no idea what you're talking about. Now, let's look at Israel's justified defense. Israel admits, and even Hamas admits, to a 1-to-1 civilian to combatant ratio of civilian casualties, which is a tragedy. It shouldn't even be one. But remember, Hamas fires their rockets from nurseries. The United States and Afghanistan had a 4-to-1 ratio of civilians murdered for every one combatant. In the Korean War, it was 5-to-1. In Iraq, it was at least 2-to-1. Israel has the lowest per capita ratio of combatants to civilians. Candace should acknowledge that. That is what we call a fact.
But you should also, hang on. You should also acknowledge then that there is a unique demographic in Gaza where of the 2 million people who live there, half of them are under 18. So that's a very different demographic to any of the other scenarios you're talking about. That is what's caused so much international opprobrium against Israel, is the fact that so many children, pro rata in the civilian death count, have been killed. It's that people are so exercised about, and rightly, because what's happened here is obvious. Hamas, yes, they've embedded themselves in civilian territory. Yes, they built all these tunnels. None of these things are to be disputed. But the problem with going after Hamas in the way that Israel has been doing is that the collateral damage, as they would put it, to so many thousands of children has now tested the patience of the world to a degree that vast quantities of the world are against it and want this to stop. That's the reality.
I think that's a very fair question. You know, and I don't like whataboutism. But Candace Owens never spoke out once against Bashar al-Assad, who killed 600,000 Arabs, and he actually gassed to death children. He targeted them with mustard and poison gas. You remember that President Obama said that's a red line, and then he gave it to Putin to get rid of those weapons of mass
which
destruction.
was completely
God bless
wrong,
President Trump, who actually... Wait, just a second. President Trump, God bless him, actually fired 59 cruise missiles when Assad did that. It's funny because people say that President Trump is anti-Muslim. He's the only one who protected Muslim life. Piers, Hamas has ruled since 2006. They won an election jointly with the PA. They took the Palestinian Authority representatives and threw them off of rooftops. They then subjected the Palestinians, 1.5 million Palestinians of Gaza, to the most ruthless persecution that we've ever seen. They stole all their money. Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in Tehran, is worth $4 billion. Now he's fighting with Erdogan, his kids, over who's going to inherit that. Khalid Mashal is worth $3 billion. You and I both know that the Palestinians of Gaza got triple the amount per capita, prorated for our times, of the Marshall Plan. All of that money was stolen to build tunnels. There isn't one bomb shelter. The reason why people are dying in Gaza is because that money was used to buy penthouses in Doha, Qatar. There isn't one bomb shelter from Hamas. Hamas shoots and murders anyone who challenges their authority. They were elected in 2006 to a 4-year term. It's now 20 years later. Hamas specifically, and that's why they're being condemned by the Palestinians right now. They want Palestinian children to die because the more they die, the more you will condemn me and Israel. But let's remember, Piers, your parents are part of the greatest generation. Winston Churchill was told by the Americans, don't bomb German cities, Hamburg, Dresden, etc., at night. You can't see what you're bombing. Do what we Americans have, which is precision daytime bombing. And Churchill said, no, my pilots are more important. We need the RAF.
All right.
And he flattened German cities. And he is considered today the greatest British statesman of the 20th century.
By the way, the flattening of cities like Dresden was widely condemned at the time, including by many people in Britain, and led to the establishment of the Geneva Convention.
Dresden was the last month of the war, but before that, Hamburg and everything else was not condemned.
It led to the establishment of the Geneva Convention after World War II, specifically to stop that kind of thing happening again. So I'm glad you raised that example. Candace, you've got over 3 minutes.
So do you condemn Winston Churchill as a war criminal for Dresden?
No, absolutely not. No.
Why not? You just said that it was wrong.
I actually was going to. I was
Winston
actually going to
Churchill
say
as
the
a
exact
war
same
criminal for
thing.
Dresden?
Well,
please, you said
okay,
not, but
Well,
why?
if you're
I
both going to
think
ask me the
you've had a
same
lot of
question,
time
let
to
me be
speak.
clear. Winston Churchill was
Yeah.
not a war criminal, right? But some of the ways that we...
Why not? He bombed Dresden and killed 25,000 people.
Yeah, he also saved the world from Adolf Hitler and the Nazis.
Oh, he saved the world. So Israel's saving the Middle East from Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Iran.
But it's not, though.
Hezbollah.
It's not, Israel's not doing that.
Thank you for answering my question.
Well,
case closed.
All right, let me go to Candace.
If I could just interject here, just to respond to that, I was going to say exactly what you said, Piers. Like, Dresden was considered a Holocaust. It was, in fact, a war crime. And there should be debates about what happened in Dresden. It was absolutely horrific that a bunch of Christians were skipping off, you know, on the eve of Ash Wednesday. And then they were quite literally reduced to ashes. It is wrong. And the fact that you are having to reference a war crime to justify what's happening in Gaza is not a point for you. It's completely awful. When people say, oh, well, look at what we did. Look at all these other horrific things we did. Why do you care about this horrible thing that's happening? I don't even understand that logic. It's completely ridiculous. Look, there is no person in good conscience who should be comfortable with the amount of death that's happening in Gaza. And yes, if you are going to correlate it to Dresden, that would be a fair comparison, except much more has been dropped on Gaza than was dropped in Dresden. So is it fair to call what's happening in Gaza a Holocaust? Is that what we're looking after when you have this nonstop onslaught? And it's completely ridiculous to say, oh, well, you know, this is happening because of Hamas. Let's be very clear. It is happening because the Israeli government will not stop bombing them, okay? So you had a very sympathetic audience all around the world, myself included, when October 7th happened. There was not a single person that should or could justify the terrorist acts that was enacted by Hamas. But the collective punishment that is being assigned to the Gazans, the Palestinians living in Gaza, is also unacceptable, and the entire world should condemn it, and it should be made to stop. And I do believe that a radical fringe has taken hold of Israel. And further evidence of that, by the way, is that we are not even allowed to critique Israel without having people like Rabbi Shmuley, which I never said he threatened to murder me, but he has threatened me for 2 years, essentially trying to bully people into their belief that they have a right.
You never said that I threatened to murder you? We're going to post every
No, I never said that you threatened to murder me. Don't cut me off. I did not cut you off.
Okay, I will not cut you off. Go ahead, please.
I did not cut you off, okay? The point is that now what's happening across America is that you have Zionist organizations that are threatening and bullying people because people are taking a stance against this act against humanity. What they're doing is inhumane in Palestine. And so what they're doing is they're saying this person should get fired, this person should lose their job. The Zionist Federation of Australia just asked for me to have my visa banned simply because I don't support what Israel is doing. And if that is what I have to pay, if ultimately what happens, I get my visa banned because Zionism has a lot of money in media, then so be it. It's less of a price than the children in Gaza are paying right now. And as a Christian, I will never support what Bibi Netanyahu is doing.
Right, and what's interesting to me, Rabbi Shmuley...
May I respond?
Hang on.
May I respond?
Yes, but let me just say again the question I put to you earlier. It's not just people outside Israel who are now heavily criticising Netanyahu and his government. It is people inside Israel in massive numbers. And so my question for you is, why? Why are so many people inside Israel taking to the streets to demand that Netanyahu stop this war?
No, they never said he should stop the war. They said there should be a ceasefire to release the hostages because Israel is a cult. Don't interrupt me, please, Candace. Because Israel is a culture of life. And that's why Israel got into this mess for October 7th. They traded 1,000 murderers, including Yahya Sinwar, who Israel saved at Soroka Hospital in Beersheba when he had a brain tumor. The Hamas Hitler, who's the architect of October 7th, Israel saved his life. It's a culture of life, even for Palestinian murderers. They traded 1,000 for Gilad Shalit. You remember that. And now a whole group is saying, even if it leads to another October 7th, I need my children home. I understand that. Piers, I have 2 sons fighting in this war. I understand the dangers that are being faced. No one's saying to stop the war, not to destroy Hamas. They're saying, call a ceasefire to release the hostages because of their execution. But I must respond. First of all, Candace just said that Israel dropped more bombs on Gaza than on Dresden. What's your source for that? Do you know that in Dresden, there were 1,000 Lancaster bombers sent over 2 nights by Churchill, and then 800 American, that's 1,800 bombs. What's your source that Israel dropped more than on Dresden?
So it's just interesting because you realize that you used Dresden as an example.
No. Answer the question. You just made Piers. This is deflection.
I said more tons of explosives.
You said that Israel. You just made a blood libel against the Jewish state. Dresden was 1,000 Lancaster bombers over 2 nights. I am asking you, what is your source?
This is getting very boring.
The answer. Okay, don't interrupt me, please. The answer is Piers. It's my turn. Correct.
Rabbi Shmuley, you can't ask someone a question and then refuse to let them answer.
So I asked for a source. I didn't ask for a question.
Go ahead.
What's the source?
We've heard the question.
Absurd.
Candace.
I'm going to respond to what you are saying. This tactic of when anybody brings up anything that Israel is doing is wrong, you get to just scream blood libel and anti-Semitism.
Don't interrupt her.
Oh my gosh, it's a blood libel. It is not a blood libel to talk about the amount of death and the tons of explosives that have been dropped on the civilians in Palestine, okay? That is not a blood libel against Jewish people.
This is
such a nasty and perverted tactic,
what is your
which
source?
essentially says, I don't have to debate anymore because I get to just call everybody a person who's accusing me of blood libels. Okay, truly, what is happening right now is that the blood of Palestinians is being shed. Okay, that is not a libel against the Jews. That is a fact and a reality against Bibi Netanyahu and this government, which has gone extreme in their response to October 7th. So stop this tactic.
Understood. Piers, can I now have my turn again? All I asked was the source. Clearly, she has none. It was invented out of whole cloth. That's what a blood libel is. A blood libel is when Candace Owens says that the actual medieval blood libel, that Jews killed Christians and drank their blood, she actually believes that. She said, please don't interrupt me. She actually says that there were Christian bodies found all over Europe. When she said that I am not trying to kill her, we will post right after this, where she said it at least on 8 occasions. That's why she's being investigated by the FBI. Because you can lie about me, you can call me filth, and Piers won't, and you can call me psychotic. I've never said that about you. But what you can't do is incite violence against my family. You have repeatedly said I'm trying to kill you. You said the Jews killed JFK. You said if the Jews killed JFK,
you said all this earlier.
We couldn't protect the president. Okay, wait one second.
Can we get back to the debate?
For a moment. No, wait. Let's just go back for a moment. No, Piers, I have to respond to things.
Would you like a
source?
When
Candace says it is demonic.
You wanted the source from Candace.
I never got.
I
never got between.
Rabbi Shmuley, you wanted the source from Candace. I think she has one. Well, why don't you let her answer? I think she has one.
Let me fact check this source as well. So 70,000
Yes, I want to see where Israel dropped more bombs on Gaza than Dresden.
70,000 tons of explosive have been dropped on the Gaza Strip. Let's see how many tons of explosives were dropped on Dresden. 1 second.
You mean she said it and now she's fact-checking it? You're kidding me, right?
Well, you're asking me to give you the direct source live, and I'm going to look it up for you, so give me 1 second.
I don't have a computer on me. I don't have a computer on me. This is ridiculous.
Let her finish.
This is a cheat sheet. This is absurd.
Let her answer the question.
Go ahead.
Candace.
So 2,700 tons of bombs were dropped on Dresden in an 800 bomber air raid. And that is according to Britannica, the encyclopedia.
And what was the tonnage of bombs dropped in Gaza?
In Gaza, it was 70,000 tons of explosives were dropped in the Gaza Strip. And I got that from CNN.
Through the duration of the war to date? Is that the time scale?
Yes.
Okay. So Rabbi Shmuley,
which
that would
they're
seem
saying
to be
has surpassed
so let's be clear.
Dresden,
so
Hamburg,
over 11
London
months, she's comparing an 11-month war to a single night in Dresden. That's clearly absurd. I'm glad that she has her cheat sheet, her computer in front of her. But notice, she made this
you called it a blood libel,
not knowing what she was talking about.
She
Just
said,
a moment, please.
Hang on. What she said, to be clear, was that the Israeli...
It's also in the New York Times.
The Israeli Defense Force had dropped more bombs on Gaza than were dropped on Dresden. That is true. Do you accept that, Rabbi Shmuley?
You know, Piers, I find this an astonishing debate.
You ask?
Wait,
for the proof.
Wait, first of all,
first
of all, I don't... Wait, what do you mean it's true? Because she said it's true?
No, do you accept
that's true?
Do you have fact
checkers?
The New York Times says it's true.
Is this a serious show? Wait. Every time I try to speak,
you asked for a source. You called it a blood libel. You asked for a source. Fortunately, we had time to look it up.
Excuse me, you are interrupting me. She made a definitive statement. She admitted she had no source. She had to then use her computer. It's absurd that she has a computer during this debate.
But she was
right
because she had to look it up. One second.
But she was right.
Now she's saying that over an 11-month war. No, we don't know that she's right because your fact checkers haven't checked it, and my fact checkers haven't checked it. But let's just go back for a moment. Israel was attacked in the most savage way, and women were gang raped, their breasts were cut off. Candace recently had a guest on who even denies that women were raped. Now she's saying it's in the New York Times. She said the other day that the New York Times lied and fabricated about the mass rape of women. She had the former press secretary of Bernie Sanders who denies that. Now she suddenly likes the New York Times. You are speaking to the #1 critic of the New York Times in America. And by the way, this is a typical thing. Candace will say there's no racism in America. Then she will sue, which she did, the Stanford, Connecticut Board of Education for a $40,000 settlement against racism. She then went on a show and fabricated and said it wasn't a settlement, it was actually for tutors for 1 month. You tell me which tutors are paid $40,000 per month. She will say that I have no right to bring up her family. First of all, I didn't. It was her own father-in-law who condemned her. But she can bring up Brigitte Macron. She can bring up Emmanuel. She can destroy their marriage. Obsess, and you were very good on that, Piers, challenging her. She can destroy other people's marriages. And you know what's also interesting?
But hang on.
Wait.
Don't just keep talking.
One final point. The day after October 7th, she said nothing for a few days, never condemned it.
Yeah.
And when you asked her on the show, she said, Piers, I never talk about anything international. Is Brigitte Macron an American?
But
so she can speak about the genitals of the First Lady of France for months, but not condemn the gang rape of Jewish women?
I've already said to Candace, I don't believe a word of the Brigitte Macron thing. What I would say about what you've just quoted Lord Farmer as saying, you said that he condemned Candace in the statement he put on X. He didn't condemn her. I've just read it again, and there's no condemnation of his daughter-in-law. He simply set
You're
out...
kidding. Read the first line. Read the first line.
In view of public comments from a high-profile member of my family, I want to put my own views on anti-Semitism and Israel's current military campaign in Gaza on public record. Where's the condemnation?
Thank you very much.
Candace?
Thank you.
Where's the condemnation?
Thank you. So let's get the timeline. Candace says she was on vacation with her father-in-law 2 days before. Wait,
Where did he condemn her?
You and I can read between the lines on any press statement.
I'm not reading between the lines.
Number one, she says, in
you
view
said
of a high profile...
I've just shown you he didn't condemn her.
He absolutely condemned her.
No, he didn't.
He doesn't once say, it's my daughter-in-law, Candace, and I love her, but we disagree. Number two, he went on to say that Israel has every right... He was distancing himself for her repulsive, putrid, and reptilian anti-Semitism.
He gave his own opinion.
Why did he start by saying, in light of a high-profile member of my family?
He gave his own opinion. He didn't condemn her and didn't even name her.
He distanced himself from Candace Owens.
Let me ask Candace a different question, which is this. Candace, why is it, do you think, that so many people in the Jewish community believe that you are anti-Semitic?
I think that's actually a very good question. And just to go back, I'm going to answer your question. I just want to make sure people are recognizing, because he said a lot of stuff there, he's not able to counter. He essentially tried to hold me to looking up the sources. We've now found the sources, and it's the BBC, it's the New York Times, and it is the Euromed Human Rights Monitor.
We have found no sources, and we'll fact check it afterward. You looked it up during the show. I'm sorry.
Bombs were dropped on Gaza, and per the BBC, the British aircraft dropped 4,000 tons of bombs on Dresden. So just for clarity,
in a single night, not 11 months. In a single night, correct.
Please don't cut me off. I have not cut you off. He called that a blood libel because that is a strategy, which is meant to just distract people from the truth or looking into it. So you say everything you say is a blood libel. Now, to answer your question, Piers, I think that's a very good question. And the answer for that is because the media as an entity has been basically mining Jewish pain, the history of their pain, by taking people out of context and presenting things that are as a fact that is simply untrue, things that I've never said. We are watching right now, and that's why I'm grateful for you to provide this opportunity. You are watching Rabbi Shmuley do this live, right? When we talk about yellow journalism and people that take things out of context and try to present it to people with a bunch of hysteria and go, oh my gosh, Candace said this. Oh my gosh, Candace is a Holocaust denier. Oh my gosh, he's called me all of these names, and he doesn't have a single fact in there. They just know that if they say those things, it's a trigger. It is reminiscent of exactly what was done for Black Americans for a very long time. They have now since changed their perspective on me, but for a long time, they thought that I legitimately hated being Black and hated the color of my skin because I stood against Black Lives Matter as an organization, and I stood against what Black Lives Matter was doing. And the media made them hysterical. She's a Black person who doesn't even want to be Black, and she's a Black white supremacist. They bought that narrative because when the media lies, a lot of people accept that what they're reading is true. But of course, I didn't hate Black Americans. I didn't hate anything other than BLM abusing and mining Black pain, going back and saying, well, it's going to be just like slavery, to distract people from what was ultimately just a fraudulent organization that was actually going to bring more harms to Black Americans in the end. And that's how I feel about the state of Israel and everything they're doing. Ultimately, I believe it's going to yield more anti-Semitism. It's going to make people associate what Bibi Netanyahu is doing to all Jews around the world. And so I think it's important for them to realize it's these same exact tactics of manipulation, the same exact name calling and ad hominem attacks that is not based in fact and not based in reality, but based in not wanting to answer the fair critiques that people have about what Israel is doing. But that's a very good question.
Okay, Rabbi Shmuley, I mean, there's some validity to that argument, I think, is that too often I do see people immediately branded anti-Semitic if they dare to criticise the Israeli government. But there's a very big difference between criticising a government and its actions and a whole people, which is what anti-Semitism is. And do you accept that difference?
The beauty of Israel is it's a democracy. You just said that hundreds of thousands of people are marching against Benjamin Netanyahu. I welcome those protests. It shows that even during war, listen, in 1864, the United States had a presidential election. Some people wanted to cancel it, saying that how could you elect Lincoln when there's a civil war? And they still had the election. Israel's the same. Let's just go through Candace Owens' history of anti-Semitism.
Well, hang on.
That is utterly unconnected.
I will let you do that. I will let you do that, and she can respond. But on my specific point, though, do you accept that it's perfectly possible, and indeed it should be in a robust democratic society, a central tenet of this, that Israel's government and its prime minister should be criticised by anyone who chooses to criticise them, without the people who criticise them being branded anti-Semitic?
Of course. I am a very close friend of Netanyahu, and I criticize him allowing Qatar. Qatar is one of the most duplicitous, evil governments in the world. They house all of the leaders, the billionaire leaders of Hamas. I criticize Benjamin Netanyahu, my dear friend, for allowing money to go into Hamas in the belief that they could be bought off. I criticize the Israeli government for not recognizing the Armenian genocide, something that Candace Owens blames the Jews. She actually says that Kemal Ataturk was led by the Jews to the Armenian genocide. By the way, the Armenian genocide took place under the Ottoman Turks, not Kemal Ataturk. She has no sense of history, and she just fabricates constantly.
Okay,
but let's just look for one moment.
Okay, on the specific
wait, one second. Let's just go through her history of anti-Semitism, please.
Yes, you said you had specifics of Candace Owens being
I will. Yes,
anti-Semitic. What are those examples?
Okay. You see, the Jewish community did not want Candace Owens to be anti-Semitic. This is actually a tragedy that a woman gifted by God with such eloquence has decided to become a purveyor of hate. And when she said in 2018 that she has no issue with Hitler because if he was a nationalist, but then he wanted to go beyond her borders, even then we didn't call her an anti-Semite. That's an absurd thing to say, that you had no issue with Hitler. Hitler, even domestically by then, had enacted all the Nuremberg laws. There was already the November 9th, 1938 pogrom.
Hang on. Just to clarify, let's take these one at a time. What do you believe she said about Adolf Hitler in the clip you're talking about?
She said that there was no issue with Hitler except for the fact that he went beyond his borders. If he was a nationalist,
well, let's play the clip.
Enough.
Let me play the clip.
But my point is, no one called her.
In the interest of fairness, I'm going to play the clip so that viewers who've never heard it can hear what actually got said.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That's not, to me, that's not nationalism. In thinking about how it could go bad down the line, I don't really have an issue with nationalism. I really don't. I think that it's okay. It's important to retain your country's identity and to make sure that what's happening here, which I think is incredibly worrisome in terms of the decrease in the birth rate that we're seeing in the UK, is what you kind of want to avoid. So I don't have anything I have no problems with nationalism. It's globalism that I try to avoid.
So, Candace, on that specific point, would you say that Rabbi Shmuley has categorized it correctly or not?
He's just openly lying, and that's why he didn't want you to play the clip. I was in the UK, by the way. I was at the Royal Mobile Club. There were Jewish journalists in the room, and nothing was written about it until months later when somebody was working on a hit piece about me. I was answering a question when they were saying, how can we just embrace the word nationalism when it sort of has this dirty feel? And I was just essentially saying that I actually don't have an issue with nationalism. I think it's totally fine to be a British nationalist, to be an American nationalist. And the problem is that it's wrongly attributed. That word, I think people instantly associate it with Adolf Hitler. And I would argue that he wasn't actually a nationalist because obviously he invaded Poland and he went beyond German borders. I didn't even mention Jewish people. I didn't mention the Holocaust. And suddenly you have people like Rabbi Shmuley who are pretending that I got up there and I defended Adolf Hitler. It's just, this isn't
that
good
is not
business.
What she said.
And
we
this is why I say right now, please
don't
cut me off. Please do not cut me off. A huge issue that you have right now is this dishonesty. If you really want to understand why Israel is facing a PR crisis, why Zionism right now to people doesn't feel good and they don't want to associate themselves with it, is because it seems like it takes so many lies to maintain. There's no reason to misrepresent what I said and to tell people that I support Adolf Hitler, other than the fact that you want people to hate me. And so I'm deeply appreciative of the fact that you guys had that clip ready to go.
Well, you may respond to what she just said and to that clip. Now you've watched it.
Okay. You know, she keeps on saying lying. I never said you shouldn't play the clip. I'm actually happy you did. She said if Hitler had only focused on domestic policy, she would have had no issue with him. His domestic policy was to the Kristallnacht, burned down 3,000 synagogues in a single night domestically. That was not in Poland. That was not in Czechoslovakia. His domestic policy was the 1934 Nuremberg laws. His domestic policy was a complete dictatorship where he destroyed the Bundestag and subjected and created Dachau under Himmler. So those are the historical facts. Now but what I said was, even then, the Jewish community gave her a pass. She explained it. One mistake, people make mistakes. Here's her history of anti-Semitism. She's not going to be barred from going into Australia because of anything she said about Israel. That is a fabrication. She's going to be barred. Australia is my wife's country, born in Sydney. She's going to be barred to go to Australia because she's a Holocaust denier, because a 100-year-old victim of Yosef Mengele, the angel of death's experiments, came forward and said, "You are going to traumatize me all over again." She actually said that Mengele's experiments, the fourth worst person in Nazi Germany after Hitler, Himmler, Goebbels, Mengele, it was a fabrication. She's an out-and-out Holocaust denier. And Australia, God bless them, took in so many survivors after the war, including my wife's family from Slovakia.
Well, let me ask Candace Owens now.
Wait, she said that the Mengele experiments were false. Go ahead.
Let me ask Candace Owens now two things. One, are you a Holocaust denier, or do you accept that 6 million Jews were killed by the Nazis in the Holocaust? And secondly, do you believe that Joseph Mengele did what he is reported to have done and has been since World War II ended?
Thank you for those questions. No, absolutely, I am not a Holocaust denier. This is, again, another fabrication based off of a monologue that I did in which I was putting pressure on the American government to explain why it is a fact that we learned all of these things about the horrific things that Nazi scientists did. And to be clear, Piers, I did not even mention Joseph Mengele's name in this skit at all. I spoke about all of the things that we learned, that we were told over the years, some of which ended up being rebutted, and there were tons of that part doesn't matter. The point is, the end conclusion of that is that the CIA, via an operation known as Operation Paperclip, took the Nazi scientists and brought them to America, where they continued horrific experiments on Americans. That's the full context of that. So they pulled out a statement, like one sentence where I said, we've heard all of these sorts of things that they've done, cut people in half, sewed them back together. And I said, that sounds like a ridiculous waste of time. And when you pull that clip up by itself, it sounds like I'm just diminishing all of these stories, when in reality, I'm saying, let's take everything at face value. Let's say everything we've ever heard was true. Why on earth would the American government acquiesce to bringing these scientists over to America? And as a fact, Dr. Mengele was not one of the scientists which was brought over to America. So
but just to be clear, you accept, hang on, I'll come to you, Rabbi Shmuley. To be clear, you accept the Nazis murdered 6 million Jews in the Holocaust?
Yeah, I have never once in any of my appearances
I'm just asking you to clarify
denied the Holocaust atrocities.
Okay.
Ever.
And you accept that Joseph Mengele was a despicable man who perpetrated horrendous crimes, including experimenting on Jewish people when they were still alive?
All of the scientists, the Nazi experiments that were done were horrific. And that's why I was saying they were so horrific that it makes you go, why on earth would the American government in this clandestine operation bring over the Nazi scientists who then became a part of our CIA and continued experiments onto America through to the 60s and the 70s. And I was quoting
let me ask Rabbi
what
Shmuley
those
to
experiments
respond.
were that was done throughout the Korean War.
Rabbi Shmuley, your response.
And I read it.
After this debate, we will post every single clip. That was a complete and utter fabrication. What she said was that she doubts that any of this happened because it was, as she just said, a waste of time. The whole Holocaust was a waste of time. Hitler had no winter equipment for his soldiers in Stalingrad under General Paulus in 1942 because the boxcars were taking Jews to Auschwitz. You see, that is what hatred is, Candace. It's where you hate so much that it becomes self-destructive. It's what's happening to you. You're a very gifted, eloquent broadcaster. You are self-destructing before America's eyes because you have some issue with the Jews, not with Israel. So let me continue. You actually said that Theodor Herzl was a Frankist. By the way, when you attack Frankists as a bunch of Jewish pedophiles, you forget to mention they all became part of your religion. They all converted in 1757 to Catholicism. You always omit that. But you said that Theodor Herzl was a Frankist, and you said he set up the state of Israel as a refuge for pedophiles. This is before Gaza. This is before Rafah, as a refuge for Jewish pedophiles. You always refer to Jews as pedophiles. It's the main word you use about Jews. And every historian knows that what began in Norwich in 1099 with the first blood libel, where the Jews were falsely accused of taking a Christian child and drinking his blood, you actually believe that. You said that Christian bodies, this is before Rafah, this is before Israel, that Christian bodies were found all over Europe. And when you speak about pedophilia, you know, it's funny, you just converted to Catholicism. In 2002, Pope John Paul II, a pope that you would probably like, he was very conservative, he was a great man, great friend of the Jewish community, recognized the state of Israel, sent an ambassador in 1994. He apologized, very frail, to the world Catholic community, saying that at least 2% of all Catholic priests were pedophiles. Later, Pope Benedict XVI apologized again. I met Pope Benedict, a great man, great friend of the Jewish community. He said it was 4%. Then Pope Francis raised it probably even higher, 6%. We know 1 million people, almost 1 million people, children in France alone, according to the French government, were abused by Catholic priests. But you've never once condemned Catholic pedophilia. Everyone knows it was the biggest scandal in the world, but only the Jews are pedophiles. Is that anti-Semitism?
Okay, let me ask Candace, do you condemn pedophiles in the Catholic Church, Christian pedophiles?
Yeah, he's just lying again. Actually, on my show, I spoke extensively about Frankism, and I told people that there was a conversion into the Catholic faith. And one of the things that I believe is that all of the Abrahamic religions have been infiltrated by Satanists, and that is what I've said. So they've decided to pull apart only the piece where I'm talking about Judaism and not where I'm speaking about all of the faiths having been infiltrated, and speaking about how it's important for everyone to recognize this so that you can realize that there is this sort of satanic cult that's operating within all of the faiths. And I think think that they use Christians and they use Jews and Muslims as well. I've said that on my show multiple times, so he's just absolutely lying about that. I think the difference here is that you'd be hard-pressed to find a Catholic that would in any capacity defend pedophilia. Now, regarding what he is saying that I said Judaism is filled with pedophiles, that is objectively a nonsense. I am a Christian. I'm aware of what the first 5 books of my Bible are. That would be me insinuating that, okay, well, the first 5 books of my Bible are inspired by pedophilia. That's absolutely false. What I said, and I'm hopeful that this is something that the rabbi will agree with, is that it is a fact that Jewish pedophiles, American Jewish pedophiles, escape and run and hide in Israel, where they are given safe harbor by the government. That is a fact. They will not extradite our pedophiles. That is an absolute nonsense, given the many billions of dollars that we give to Israel, that we can't get back the men that are raping children, okay? And I can't imagine a single person that would think otherwise, that is not a nonsense and that we should not be giving back those pedophiles. And to be clear, it wasn't Candace Owens who researched and came up with this. It was an incredible Jewish organization that looked into this, talked about how wrong it was, and brought it into the mainstream media. If you don't like that Israel is harboring pedophiles, that's not on me. That is on the state of Israel, okay? Again, I am condemning the state of Israel for harboring American pedophiles and not extraditing them. Do you have a disagreement there, Rabbi? If so, please share.
Thank you, Candace. Not only is that an absolute lie and fabrication against Israel, the most famous example, the country that will now bar you from entering because you're a Holocaust denier, not because of Israel, because a 100-year-old experimentee of Mengele came forward and said, do not subject me to this trauma.
And the Interior Minister of Australia said,
wait, what's it?
Well, she just said it.
No. But she denies Mengele's experiments.
You can't call someone a Holocaust denier when they've literally just said 6 million Jews got killed in the Holocaust.
Wait.
That's not Holocaust
denial.
Wait a
second. Come on, Piers. You're more subtle than that.
It's not about being subtle.
Say that 6 million Jews died. You can say
she believes
of course you could be a
happened.
Holocaust denier. Why don't you let me answer, please? You could say that 6 million Jews were accidentally bombed by Curtis LeMay and by bomber Harris, and there was no Zyklon B. She said that Mengele did not do those experiments. By the way, this is not my decision.
Didn't even mention
this is the government of Australia that is barring her. Please don't interrupt me, Candace. The most famous example in Australia of a Jewish pedophile. Please don't interrupt me. The most famous example of a Jewish pedophile was a woman named Malka Laufer. She was a religious woman from Melbourne, Australia. And she apparently abused 74 children. She ran to Israel. She was prosecuted by Israel, extradited. She is in Australia being prosecuted right now. This is a total fabrication. And it comes down to what Candace has the most unhealthy obsession with Jewish sexuality. Notice that we all know that the Vatican, of course, took cardinals, like the Cardinal Archbishop of Boston, and gave them the highest positions in the Vatican. She has never criticized that. Only Israel. Now, Candace, let me ask you a point-blank question. Did you say that Theodor Herzl, you said he was a Frankist or descended from Frankists. Again, Frankists all became Catholic. He was Jewish. Did you say that Theodor Herzl set up Israel as a haven for Jewish pedophiles?
Okay, first and foremost, I just want to debunk your claim that what I said was a lie. It is in CBS News, and it was the Jewish Community Watch, an American organization that tracks accused pedophiles, who has been trying for years to find a specific pedophile. They are the ones that brought this to the forefront, and CBS News partnered with them.
What's the name of the pedophile? What's the name of that pedophile? I just gave you a name, Malka Laufer. What's the name of that pedophile?
Well, they were tracking down
a pedophile named Caron. Now let's go to the Vatican. How many people they allowed? How many cardinal archbishops were protected?
Please don't cut me off. Please don't cut me off.
Okay.
You told a lie, and so I'm debunking it live for you. The pedophile
What's
they were
the
tracking
name
down
of the pedophile they're looking for? What's the name?
I'm trying to say it for the third time. His name is Jimmy Julius Caron.
You're looking it up right now? You mean you said all this and you had no idea?
The title of the article in CBS News is entitled, How Jewish American Pedophiles Hide from Justice in Israel. CBS News teamed up with a Jewish organization and came to this conclusion because they were the ones that brought it to the forefront. So courageous Jewish people who are calling this out as something that is wrong.
Do we really need someone to read off the internet in a debate? This is not your show. This is a debate.
Okay.
I am debunking
she say that Theodore Herzl created the state of... No,
I
Piers,
think we are getting,
did she
if you
say
don't mind
that
me
Theodore
saying,
Herzl
I
set
think
up Israel?
we are getting too obsessionally sidetracked into paedophilia. When
No, this is one critical thing. Did she say that Theodore Herzl set up Israel as a haven for pedophiles?
I want to end. We've got to end the debate, and I want to end the debate by giving you both this opportunity. Right? You are both religious people. Right? Every religion purports to be peace-loving. Right? Religions are supposed to spread peace and harmony and love and respect and kindness. Whether you're a Catholic, as I am, as Candace is, whether you're a Jew, as you are, Rabbi Shmuley. So I'm going to ask you both, and I'll start with you, Candace, to say something nice about Rabbi Shmuley. Be a Christian. What would you say?
Yeah, you know, I actually deeply appreciate Rabbi Shmuley having a platform. It's not something that I've ever said I want his platform stripped away, because I think that he does more in terms of revealing what it is that I'm speaking about when I'm talking about radicalism than anybody else. And so in that way, I'm grateful that he has a platform, and I would never call for him to be banned from anywhere. I hope he gets a megaphone, and I think that
as a
people
human being,
watching his behavior today...
Do you see any saving grace as a human being?
You know, I think I will pray for him. I will pray for his conversion into Christianity. I don't think it's normal to lie like that and feel nothing, but he continues to do it. He's filing FBI reports against me over pizza. I don't have any hatred in my heart towards Rabbi Shmuley. I really don't. Like I've said, I hope he forever has a platform, because I think that it showcases to the world what it is that I'm speaking about when we speak about radical Zionism.
Okay, Rabbi Shmuley, do you want to say something nice about Candace Owens?
Absolutely. She is gifted by God with incredible eloquence. I think she can repent and cease being a force for hatred against the black community who call her clandestine, who have rejected her utterly. She is one of the most despised women in America by the black community. She is doing a whole new tour to be reaccepted. I think she can use her eloquence to apologize. Instead, she essentially hinted that the only reason she attacked the black community for the past 4 years, calling them stupid and dumb and can't vote for themselves and cry wolf and racism, was because she was forced to do so at the Daily Wire. I call it the Daily Liar. Maybe that's correct, but I think she should take personal responsibility. Saying that Israel was created as a haven for Jewish pedophiles by Theodore Herzl is not the way she's going to repent. Saying that she defends Kanye West when he says he loves Hitler. Hitler killed 10,000 Jews a day, 3 9/11s a day for 4 years, between 1941 and 1945.
I think we know the greatest
wait one second, please.
No,
Piers.
I know the greatest hits are coming. It's fine. We've heard them.
But
all
you know, you wanted to
speak. Say something nice.
You said, I think she could use her. I think she could use.
That's how we started this.
I think she could use her eloquence to repent. That's all.
Okay.
And I think finally, that if Candace could just come forward and admit that as a Christian, Jesus said clearly that you cannot approach him except through the Jews. He said that the Jews are the root and Christians are the branch. The fact that we in the community consider her the #1 anti-Semite in America means that she cannot relate to Jesus. So I'm saying become a Christian. That's a nice, very nice thing to say. The fact that Jesus said, I am sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Come and learn about the Jewish Jesus. You know what, Candace? I'll give you a free copy of my book, Kosher Jesus. It teaches you about the Jewish Jesus. The meek shall inherit the earth. Love your enemies. Turn the other cheek. Don't say, and stop calling me a killer. Stop saying I'm trying to kill you. You've said it over and over again. You are saying what Henry II said. Rid me of this troublesome priest.
I think we've established you're struggling to find anything nice to say about Candace, but I appreciate you both coming on together for this debate. I think it's been very illuminating, and thank you for doing it. Thank you for being uncensored.
Thank you very much, Piers.
Thank you.
Thank you.